What is up? And welcome into Driving the Line's expert guide to betting college baseball. My name is Allan Bell, and we have a great tutorial lined up for you here, whether you are brand new to the sport or an expert that's been following for years. I assure you that this guide will help you with betting the great sport of college baseball and have a lot of fun doing it while also making some money. Now, what we're going to walk through, the overview, is this right here. All right. These 6 items, I promise, will help you in your journey of betting college baseball. First off, the seasons. College baseball, it is essentially 6 different seasons in one, and they are not the same in regards to how you bet them. We'll walk through it together. The types of wagers. How do you bet on this sport? The schedule. All right. You watch the NFL, they play 1 game a week. College baseball is different, and you have to approach each game separately. The betting mindset. All right. This goes into really the entire process. Where are you at in the season, and how do we approach betting and wagering on teams, games, weekends, etc.? The rotation, a tool that we invented that I think that you will find very, very helpful of a resource to use. And then finally, tips to keep with you. Remember these tips, write them down, keep this tutorial handy, because I promise it will get long and tough. All right. It is an exciting sport of chaos, and it can go the other way and break your heart, and it will. But in the end, you will prevail, and it's a ton of fun. And these steps right here will help you in that process. All right. Let's not waste any time. Let's get right into it. Now, before we jump into the seasons, an important note that you need to know: embrace this now. You will lose bets in this sport. Embrace it now. But your goal is to look further than today. All right. Win the weekends. Have a plan. This is where most people fail. Literally anything can happen, and often does, in college baseball, but you'll have your heart ripped out and also witness absolute miracles. Make sure, live longer than today, understand your metrics, and just win the weekend. Here's how you do it. All right. The biggest failure rates when betting college baseball is by those with an all on the line today mentality and those that lose focus. You will have days where you miss every bet. It's going to happen. This sport is built on chaos. It's guaranteed. However, success betting college baseball is found, all right, by focusing on your task at hand and knowing where you stand regarding your metrics and taking calculated risk shots when you're ahead, not behind. That's enough of the rules. Let's jump into it. Understand, all right, this is not the sport to play greedy. It's long, but you'll be surprised the success you will find when you are focused on betting process oriented instead of short term goal oriented. Let's jump into it. The seasons. Okay. We spoke 6 seasons in one. All right. Non-conference play about the first month of the year. That's where you have teams that are playing in early season tournaments. They're playing teams, obviously, from other conferences, right? Then, after about 3, 4, 4.5 weeks of that, teams jump into conference play. Depending on where you're at, Big Ten teams play Big Ten teams. SEC teams play SEC teams. All right. Then you have conference tournaments. That's the 3rd season in the season, so to say. All right. Then we begin the postseason. The 4th, regionals. All right. The 5th, super regionals. And the 6th, the College World Series. So when you look at regionals, all right, once the postseason starts, that is essentially a group of 4 teams. All right. And whoever wins that group of 4 advances to super regionals. Super regionals are 2 teams playing a best of 3 series, and the winner, whoever wins 2 games, goes to the College World Series. The top 8 teams in the country go to the College World Series. 2 will play in the finals, one from the left side of the bracket, one from the right side of the bracket. Best of 3 series, winner takes all. But we've got plenty of time to get to the postseason. We need to understand exactly how these seasons are broken down, okay? So, jumping in here, all right? The types of wagers that you have are 3. Now, you have lots of props, but depending on your book, you'll find team totals, you'll find all those kinds of looks, but you have a money line, a total, and a run line. So let's use last year's College World Series National Championship as an example. Texas A&M taking on Tennessee. All right. The money line right there in the middle. You see it, plus 150 for A&M, minus 180 for Tennessee. That means the minus Tennessee is the favorite. That is the juice that you would have to pay. All right, $180 to win $100. Now, if you took moneyline Texas A&M, all right, and you have plus 150, that means a $100 bet would win you $150. You see what I'm saying? So you're going to have to pay juice to bet the favorite there, or you're going to get juice by betting the underdog. And the money line, that team has to win outright. The total, that's the amount of runs scored in the game between both teams, 11.5, meaning if Texas A&M won 7-5, that's 12 runs, the over 11.5 would hit. All right. If Texas A&M won 7-3, that's 10 runs, the under 11.5 would hit. And then you see the spread there listed first, also known as the run line. All right. Tennessee minus 1.5 being the favorite. That means Tennessee would have to win by 2 runs or more. On the other side, Texas A&M plus 1.5. That means Texas A&M could lose the game by 1 run, say 4-3, and you cover because Texas A&M would need to lose by 2 runs or more for them not to cover the run line, also known as the spread. Get into the schedule, okay? And I'll pull myself back here on screen. So what you'll find, all right, the schedule of college baseball, we spoke about the NFL, right? The NFL generally plays on Sundays. Yeah, you have, Monday night games, Thursday night games, Sunday night games. But just in general, you play 1 game a week, okay? College baseball is different. 4 games in a week. You'll have a midweek non-conference game, and then you will have a weekend best of 3 series. So when you have these midweek non-conference games, it's generally a team that is somewhat local. The first part of the year, I mean, it's going to be all over, but once you get into conference play, which is the bulk of the season, let's just use, we were just talking about Texas A&M. We'll use them as an example. Once we get into conference play, they're obviously in the SEC. So midweek games are played generally Tuesday or Wednesday, all right? They would play a local team in Texas, somewhere around the state. And again, I understand that the state is large, but that is how it would work, okay? Could play TCU, right? They could play a big-time team, or it could be, Houston, Tech State, whoever, right? Like, that's generally how it goes. But be careful on those games because when you have midweek non-conference, especially for big ranked teams, okay, that is generally where younger players get in the games. It's where they start games, okay? You've usually got either your 4th best pitcher that's starting, maybe a freshman. All right, that's on the bigger teams. For the smaller teams, quote unquote, all right, well, I don't want to get that win. It means something to go in and beat that big program, right? So that's something of a mindset. We'll talk more about it in regards to betting mindsets of it. But 4 games, all right, in a week. So you've got your 1 game that's on Tuesday or Wednesday, then a weekend best of 3 series against the same team. Okay, so Texas A&M will go back to Tennessee. Let's say it's regular season conference play. Tennessee at Texas A&M, whether it's home or the road, right? It's either going to be College Station, it's going to be in Knoxville. All right, you're going to play Friday night, you're going to play Saturday night, you're going to play Sunday. All right. So the mindset of these are obviously these teams want to win the weekend, okay? But these games are different. And let's break down how these Friday, Saturday, Sunday games are approached by teams because, yes, the midweek non-conference games, they're important for sure. Every game is in the regular season, but it's the weekend games that absolutely determine series and postseason opportunities for these teams. So jumping into it, okay? The betting mindsets here. Number 1, Approach betting this sport longer than today. Yes, you want to win every bet that you have. All right. You want to finish with profit each day. It's not going to happen. Okay. There's too much chaos in this sport. What I mean by that, not to be discouraging, because you can do very, very well, but you want to approach this as a longer term deal. We talk about winning the weekend. That's what we want to do. We want to win the weekend or win the week. All right. We might have a tough day on Tuesday or Wednesday or Friday, right? But Saturday counts. Sunday counts. We approach it the same way that these teams do, and I'll show you why. Not a lot of people do this, and it's why a lot of people stop betting the sport, because it can get frustrating for them because they're focused on one day. Don't do that. All right. Approach it every single week. Just win that week, win that weekend. All right. And you will see your profits double, triple, quadruple. All right. Focus on that one. All right. The mindset of betting midweek games. Be careful of local teams. All right. That are pretty good. Now, you're also going to have really difficult pricing. All right. I'm here in Nashville, Tennessee. You're going to see, let's say, the Tennessee Volunteers, playing against, I don't know, Middle Tennessee State. Now, MTSU, not a bad program, right? However, Tennessee's going to be a minus 350, 400, 450, right? In terms of the money line favorite. You can't bet that. There's nothing that you can do with that. So you're going to see a run line of Tennessee like minus 4.5. Well, yeah, on the weekend, they would probably be all over that. But during the midweek, you might have a freshman that's pitching. All right. The manager might want to get some at bats for guys who are at the bottom, of the lineup or the roster that don't start games, that don't get a lot of innings. Right. So you're going to have teams that approach midweek games differently. And you're going to have the same team that might approach it differently each single week. So be careful with these midweek games. You could definitely find gold. I assure you, you can. But these are the dangerous ones, okay? Because you just don't know where the mindset is of every single manager of every single team when looking at these games. And they're dangerous when you're playing local teams who it's kind of their Super Bowl. You know what I mean? So be careful with that one. Now, betting weekend games. How do these weekend games really get broken down? And here's how. Okay, like I said, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We'll use Tennessee and Texas A&M. We'll continue to use them as an example. Okay, so let's say that Texas A&M is in Knoxville, Tennessee. A&M's the road team for the weekend. Tennessee's the home team playing at their stadium, right? So Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, 3 games in the weekend. Fridays, all right, each team, generally for the most part, throws their ace, their number one pitcher. So, what do you get in regards to that? Generally, some pretty darn good pitching. Okay. So, when you look to bet Friday games, they can be difficult. If you're looking at betting Friday, Saturday, and Sunday through a weekend, Fridays might be your most difficult day, honestly, because it's tough, especially when you have 2 ranked teams that are playing against each other. Okay. So understand your pitching matchups, but also understand that if you're looking at run production, totals, okay, Fridays, you might have totals that are over under 11 and a half, 12 and a half, 13 and a half. Saturdays, okay, each team's throwing their number 2 pitcher, starting pitcher, okay? But you also have bullpen usage, all right? What happens if, say, Texas A&M beats Tennessee 13-0 on Friday, all right? What that probably meant is that A&M starting pitcher went pretty deep in the game, all right? They play 9-inning games, unless you get, run ruled. But let's just say A&M starting pitcher went 7 innings, and they used a relief pitcher in the 8th inning and a closer in the 9th inning. Each one threw 1 inning. Solid. If you're Tennessee, get beat 13-0, that generally means that your starting pitcher was taken out probably in the 4th inning or sooner. Then you had to use who knows how many relief guys, right? Just to get through the game. Well, you only have so many players, and you definitely only have so many pitchers that are relief pitchers and closers. So if you see teams that get whooped on a Friday, all right, and then whooped on a Saturday, pay attention. We'll go through the numbers here in a minute, but pay attention to the bullpen usage, because once you get to Sunday, all right, where you have each team's throwing their third best starting pitcher, one team might be completely out of relief pitchers, no arms, right? So they're living on a prayer, man. All right. While the other team, pretty loaded. They didn't have to use many guys, right? So that is one mindset. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. But just understanding, all right, how these weekends go. It all starts on Friday. Now you might have a nice back and forth affair. Could be one team wins Friday 4-3. Saturday, the other team wins 4-3. You didn't have much bullpen usage. Those are going to happen, but you're also going to have huge variances all over the board. Understanding that and knowing that is 100% where you will find your value for sure. Not only betting who's going to win the game, but if you bet run lines, if you bet teams' money lines in parlays, or if you bet over unders in the games, all right, all of that goes into it. And again, we'll get into that in a minute. All right, you see below betting weekend games, betting midweek games. Again, I wrote that. Be careful with those. Yes, you will find gold, you will find value, but you will also find trouble. Be careful. Finally, okay, I know I just threw a lot at you. Simplify and stick to the process. Win the week, win the weekend. You don't have to go and bet every game of every team. Like, stay focused, all right, and understand your weekend. Your goal is to win the weekend. So if you have a good day on Friday night, right, like you have a good day betting on Friday, you follow, say you go 3-0 on Friday, all right, 3 bets, hit all 3. Saturday, you go 4-1. Well, you're 7-1 on the weekend. You're good. Like stopping when you're ahead is not the same as quitting. You know what I mean? Win the weekend. You might not even bet Sunday, or you might, take a little parlay risk shot at something to see if you can risk a little to win a lot. And if you don't, hey, it's house money anyways. You're still going to win the weekend, right? That's how you want to approach it. Simplify it, all right, and stick to the process. This is a sport with 300 something teams, with games all over the place that are going nuts, all right? The sport is already built on chaos. Do not make it more difficult on yourself. And I'll show you what I mean and how to simplify this process, all right? The analytics that you want to use, all right? D1baseball.com is absolutely my favorite. They have all the stats, schedules, live scores, everything that you need, not to mention their team is fantastic. Kendall Rogers and his group, a great, great educated group of reporters and folks who love college baseball and will provide you with everything that you need to know. Also, all right, there's no one better to follow than local beat reporters of said schools. Okay. If you don't know or don't follow beat reporters, all right, good place to start on3.com, 247sports.com. All right. These companies focus on beat reporters, groups of them for every major school. All right. I used to work at 24/7 Sports for 7 years. All right. I've seen all of these folks that cover these teams. They're there every day. Follow them. Go to 247sports.com and just click on college and click on a school. All right. And you'll see the reporters to follow. All right. Guys like Wes Rucker. All right. Ryan Callahan, Tennessee. All right. These guys are at these games. They speak to these players, coaches daily. All right. All across the board. Now, some smaller schools are more difficult than others, but following beat reporters is where your best information will come from. Starting pitchers, all right, lineup adjustments, injuries, just overall general emotion, feeling of the team at any given moment, right? Beat reporters will give you gold, absolute gold. Make sure to find them. Now, pitching rotations, we just talked about it, okay? And the analytics, and I'll show you here in a second exactly what I mean with all these, but you want to understand pitchers. Now, again, simplify it. You don't have to know every pitcher of every school, of every team. We're not saying that, but you want to understand how these pitching rotations work. Some schools have just monster 1-3, 1-4 starting pitchers. They don't give up many runs. Okay. All right. They go long in games. Texas A&M being a team like that. All right. Other schools, all right, have good starters. They might not go long in games, but their bullpens are incredibly efficient and they know how to use them. All right. Pay attention to that. Runs for or against, all right, is a good metric to understand. If you use Texas A&M, what is their average amount of runs they score per game? What's the average amount of runs that they allow to the other team per game? Same thing with strikeouts for or against, okay? Texas A&M as a team or their star players, right? Is this a team that strikes out a lot? All right. Or is this a team to where their pitchers strike a lot of people out? All right. These are good key statistics to know. Same thing with walks for or against, because getting on base in college baseball is incredibly important. Yes, I know it's important in all of baseball, but college baseball, it is very important because chaos can happen at any moment. I'm telling you, errors happen, all kinds of crazy things. There is no game that is in hand until it is over. I assure you on that. So, teams that either draw a lot of walks at the plate or teams with pitching staffs that give up a lot of walks. Pay attention to that. All right. And here's how you do it. So here's your top 25. All right. These are metrics. I'm going to go through a lot of slides here. All right. Of metrics that I follow, update, and just have a full understanding each as we go. All right. I generally update them on Mondays to Tuesdays so that I know what I'm approaching and looking at for the week. Okay. So you got your top 25. All right. You know who they are. All right. You see them. You see teams that move in, teams that move out. But, all right, you see things like this. Okay. Runs scored. So look at Wake Forest. All right. Time of this recording, 63 runs so far this season. All right, they score a lot of runs. Tarleton, same thing. St. Bonaventure, keep going down the list. You see it. Look at the batting averages of these teams, okay? That means this team is hitting, all right? And they can put up a lot of runs, okay? So pay attention to these, all right? Understand where these teams are and who you are betting on. Now, runs allowed, same deal on the other side, okay? Now, this is the good end. All right. As of recording, Oral Roberts only given up 2 runs so far in the year in their first 3 games. Florida State only given up 2, right? Tennessee only given up 2, right? Understand these teams, understand the stats. You don't have to know every stat, all right, because that's just going to be impossible. But understanding the important stats and the simple ones, all right, because you don't want to overthink betting this sport. There's so much going on. You can't know everything. And quite frankly, paralysis by analysis, okay? You'll get lost in the sauce. Like, just stay focused on the things that you want to know, and you'll be able to gauge yourself as you go, okay? Now, these are these are the stats that I put together each, and I'm going to go through them and I'll show you here, and I'll pull it up full screen. So this is from last season, from week 12. Okay, I would track who the top 5 teams in terms of hitting home runs. All right, Austin P was leading it at that point of week 12 in the 2024 season, 128 as a team. Tennessee 122, et cetera. You can see that now. Pitching. All right. These are ERAs as a whole. Which teams are just dominant in terms of pitching? Because that generally means that they don't give up a lot of runs. Arkansas led the country. All right. Opponents had a mere 201 batting average as a whole against Arkansas up to week 12. Duke, all right, 212. Teams were just not hitting these guys, right? Because their pitching was just fantastic. And that's how they were winning games. So not only in terms of picking teams who are going to win, all right, but also playing totals, all right. We didn't play a lot of Arkansas game overs because they only get, Arkansas would win a lot of games 6-1, 5-2. That's how they got down, right? They could score a little bit. They weren't prolific. You don't see them on the left-hand side in terms of home runs, but they didn't need to be. Then again, though, we're not playing over 11 and a half, over 12 and a half in Arkansas games because for the most part, teams are scoring 2 to 3 a game, max, right? So just having an idea, I like to keep track of those stats right there. So that's one. Next one, okay? So we talk about winning the weekend. Again, where almost all folks who bet and fail at betting in college baseball is they're focused on one day, today. And I get it. It's betting, it's money. Totally understand that. However, what you want to do each week, all right, like I said, I did it on Mondays, overnight to Tuesdays. I would align myself with the key series for this weekend, meaning Friday game, Saturday game, Sunday game. Okay. We're in conference play here at this moment. So, wanted to know who's playing, who are the big teams that are playing. Because again, also your sports books are not going to give you every team to bet. It's just as tough for them, right? Because it's not the NFL. They don't have 100 people out of 100 in a room dedicated to it. They might have two, right? So at this point, I'll show you what I mean. Texas A&M, number one team in the country at this point last year, at LSU. LSU wasn't ranked, but LSU's LSU, okay? They're good. Number 2, Arkansas at number 8, Kentucky. Heck of a series, 2 top 10 teams, both in the SEC. Number 3, Tennessee at Florida, all right? You could see it. Keep going down the list. A lot of ranked teams, okay, that you had going. And you're going to see it because the SEC, Big Ten, ACC, I mean, you're going to see a lot of these. I would track these games, all right? And this is what you want to do too. And it doesn't have to be just ranked teams, but these games are generally the ones that you're going to have available always at your books. Once we get into conference play, like ranked teams are going to be the ones that you have the option to bet consistently. You might get a Kennesaw State on a Friday, and you might not see it again for a week. So it's tough to focus on some of those teams. You're going to get the ranked teams, right? So that generally leads you in the area of where you want to follow them. And again, the most important thing that you can do, all right, is yourself and be prepared for that week. Okay. Not saying it's going to pay off every time, but anyone who has followed our picks, whether here at Driving the Line, back at CBS Sports, we didn't lose a lot of weekends. And that's why we had success. And once we got to the postseason, books would stop giving us odds because we knew these teams. All right. And that's another thing is that you will get to know these teams. You don't have to know everything about them, but you just want to know enough about them. That will bring you success. I cannot stress it enough. Not many bettors do it, and it costs them. And they get frustrated, and they start reaching, and they start making bets that they shouldn't, trying to catch up, and then they get themselves in a bigger hole. Do not do that, okay? Take the time, all right? Or just watch on Driving the Line. I'll do this every week, all of us together. I'll do this, and you can see it. But I just want you to understand exactly how we go about starting our process each week because it's process oriented. All right. We don't have a goal of, I want to make X amount of units. But no, I just want to do very well this week and be in a spot where we win more than we lose. And then I want to repeat that process, see if we can get better. Right. So those are your key series. All right. Something that we track. Next, something that I call, and you're going to see, like, again, these aren't exactly the science of what everyone has to do. It's just what works for me. All right. I created some of these things. You'll see what we call coming in hot. Okay. And these are all based off of week 12. So you get an idea. So what I like to do, okay, is track teams. All right. You see the ranked teams there on the left. They don't have to be ranked, but again, these are generally the teams that you're going to have available to bet. Right. So I like tracking teams coming off of good weekends. All right. So look at the week 11 results. Texas A&M. All right. I don't know who they played, but they went 3-1. Arkansas went 3-1. Tennessee 4-0. All right. You see it, man. Like, all right. So each team has their 4 games. That is the midweek game and then the 3 weekends. Okay. Sorry, I had to catch myself there. But again, 3-1, 3-1. Tennessee went 4-0. East Carolina 4-0. UC Irvine 4-0. Oklahoma State 4-0. You know why? All right. Generally, hitting is contagious. Pitching is contagious. All right. Teams that are playing good, I want to know. And if we're tracking this, all right, from week 1 all the way to the end, all right, and as I get a drink here, like if we're tracking it in East Carolina is every weekend, like every Monday when we do this, they're 4-0, 3-1, 3-1, 4-0. Well, you know what? They keep winning, and I like to bet teams that are consistent. All right. So, yeah, like you'll start to notice trends and you'll start to notice teams. And look at the week 12 series. So that is who The team on the left, okay, is facing this coming weekend. So you could take a look. Is LSU playing good at the moment? Have they dropped 2 weekends in a row? All right, Kentucky. Notice where they're playing. Is the series at home or is it on the road, right? So, again, each slide that you're going to see is not meant to be that slide is the answer. Okay? And I'll show you what I mean at the end. But it's just information that we have, okay, of just important things in this sport that I have seen year after year after year after year that teams that are hot generally continue to stay hot, right? Until they run into a team that's ready to take them out. But that's why we have this. So look at this. Now the bounce back. So this is kind of the opposite theory here. Or not opposite theory, it's just the other end of the theory. So the bounce back are teams that we know are good, all right, ranked. Man, they had a bad weekend. Okay. Clemson, week 11, they went 2-2 over that week. Kentucky, 1-2. Duke, 1-3. Vanderbilt, 2-2. Coastal Carolina, 0-5. Oregon, 2-2. Okay. So as you also track this slide and these teams, you start to get an idea and you say, okay, I'm seeing Coastal Carolina on this list week after week after week after week. They're not bouncing back. They're just having bad weekends. Well, how about we either fade them, because in betting, you don't have to be good. You don't have to be bad. You just have to be consistent, okay? I just need to know a consistency of where you're at. So if Coastal Carolina is on this list every week, well, you know what? If the other team on that list is playing pretty damn good ball, okay, I'm going to fade them. Look at Kentucky there, 1-2, right? Playing against Arkansas, who, if you look, was on this list and on it the week before and on it the week before, right? So that's how you start to get an idea. It doesn't mean that you're going to play all these teams, okay? You might find one, right, to where you're like, okay, Arkansas on the great list, Kentucky on the bad list, and Kentucky's been there a couple weeks. I'm not saying that they were, but you get what I'm saying here, right? So just kind of one that you circle. Doesn't mean you're betting it yet. You kind of circle it. You're like, all right, let me look. All right, probably need to write this down. Arkansas could be a good bet. So that's what we call the bounce back. Now, could be the what also happens in this sport is a bounce back. Okay. So you look at like Clemson, all right, fourth ranked team in the country. They go 2-2. Normally don't have 2-2, 1-3, 0-4 weeks. All right. So you see in week 12 coming up this weekend, they're going to play Georgia Tech at home. Who I don't know how Georgia Tech did, in week 11 of 2024. But what I'm saying is, what if Georgia Tech has lost the last 3 series in a row and it hasn't been close and they've got injuries and their pitching staff is just depleted? Okay. Clemson might be a great team to back, right? Because again, these teams that are really good and ranked really high, right? It's for a reason. And they usually can bounce back pretty damn strong. But again, doesn't mean that you're going to take all of these teams to bounce back. They might have a really tough matchup. Kentucky being the example, right? So we might not circle Kentucky. We actually circled Arkansas, but we might circle Clemson. All right. This might be a great weekend for them to bounce back. And trust me, all right, these coaching staffs, these managers, they look at winning the weekends. All right. It's very important. So again, yeah, you look at Vanderbilt the next week, going to play at Georgia. Georgia in 2024 scored a ton of runs. So you might circle that one and say, all right, well, Vanderbilt is due for a bounce back. All right. They're healthy. Pitching staff's good. They had a bad week. It happens to everybody. You're going to bounce back strong. Well, maybe Georgia's playing fantastic baseball right now, and they're scoring a ton of runs. We might look at it and say, okay, well, I'm not going to bet Vanderbilt or I'm not going to bet Georgia, but I'll bet that over, right? Like I'm going to look at what the totals are, 11.5, 12.5, 13.5, right? Now, if I see a low number, I'm going to attack it. So you circle that and you say, all right, let's take a look at these totals throughout the weekend, because you're not going to have lines when you're doing this Monday and Tuesday. All right. So you're going to have to do your notes before. And then once they do come out, Thursday night, Friday morning, for that weekend, that's when you attack. Okay. But the goal and the plan all right, is following the process, is being ahead of the game, okay? And you're looking at it from a larger perspective than just today, to where you've got bettors that are, if we're doing this on Tuesday morning, all right, we got midweek games that day. Well, I might not care to bet any midweek games. There might not be anything that I like, but I'm doing my homework because I'm going to prepare for the weekend. And then you're going to have other bettors, that are attacking Tuesday and going crazy, and chaos happens and they have a bad Tuesday. Well, then they're betting even worse games on Wednesday, right? And they have a bad Wednesday. So then they're all flustered. They don't trust themselves at all, to where we are focused on the week as a whole. And if we have a bad day, we have a bad day. It's going to happen, right? Fridays are brutal. They're the most difficult games to bet. It's the first one in the series, right? And you've got your best pitcher against your best pitcher, okay? Might not get a lot of runs scored. Might be pretty tight. One error might cost everything. So what I mean by that is that on Fridays, there are plenty of weekends where we started Friday 0-3. Literally, right? But everyone here driving the line, or, CBS Sports, like everyone that we did this week after week, we talked about this during the week and we said, all right, look, we're winning the weekend. That's the important thing. So we didn't focus on that, right? We're like, okay, well, we'll look at this after the weekend, and maybe, with our metrics, we adjust how we approach betting Fridays. But we've got a good idea for Saturday, right? Then we go 3-0. Sunday, 4-1, right? So you end up winning the weekend in the end, and you didn't get flustered. You stuck to your data, you stuck to your metrics. I cannot stress enough. Now, again, I do a lot of research into these, and I hand do all these, right? You don't have to do all of them. You don't have to do any of them. You can watch Driving the Line every week, and I'll have all of it for you. But if you are someone who likes to do this kind of work, it will pay off incredibly. Stay focused, understand, and trust your metrics. Now, trends of note. So, again, I'm not always the biggest trend person, but trends are trends for a reason, right? So each week, what I would do, all right, and you see this, all right, Indiana, let's just use the first one. Indiana's allowed 94 runs over its last 8 games. Okay, we'll just use that for an example. Okay, well, let's say that this trends of note is a living document that we start, say, week 1. Well, if every week Indiana's giving up 9 runs a game, all right, 36 runs a week, and we keep seeing this trend, all right, on this list that is basically just notes that we're compiling week after week after week. Well, we might want to play the other team, or we might want to play overs in regards to Indiana games. Let's see who they're facing this weekend. Oh, they're facing Georgia, who scores 11 runs per game, right? These things matter. Now, they're not the end-all, be-all, but they matter. Michigan played 6 Saturday games and lost 5 of them. Sounds dumb, but it's not. Maybe they have a really horrible number 2 pitcher, all right? Or maybe on Fridays, all right, they just don't score a lot of runs, and then they find themselves going to the bullpen quickly, right? And all of that carries over. That's what I'm saying. So it's like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are 3 different games, but they play into each other, okay? So when you start seeing things like this, all right, they matter, and they're happening for a reason. Find out that why. All right. Because generally, when we're doing these notes, like these are from, week 11 going into week 12. Well, if Indiana gives up a ton of runs again in week 12, right, we're just going to update the note because it continues to happen. You see what I'm saying? So it's like not every one of them is going to carry over. A lot of these are going to stop. But understanding like the actual real trends and understanding why, all right, matters big. Well, then, looking at Michigan, let's go see who they play this coming, this weekend. How does that team do on Saturday? Oh, they've got, you know, one of the best number 2 pitchers in the country. For them, that would be a number 1 on almost any other team. Okay. Well, we'll keep an eye on that. We'll circle that, right? So, again, that's what it's all about. You just want to keep notes, and it's just a living document week to week, all right? Sometimes you might take it off, all right? Arkansas, look at that bottom. They've won 15 straight by a total margin of 121-31. Look at that. 15 straight games. And not only been scoring a ton of runs, as we talked about, they don't give up a lot of them, right? Run lines, betting them can come into play, all right? betting Arkansas, just in general, right? Like you just want to keep track of just jotting things down. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just jot these things down, see what carries over week to week. And again, it doesn't have to be this expansive, but it helps. I assure you it's worth its time. Again, here's the second part of it. This is kind of how I started. All right. You'll see it is not scientific at all. Notes and observations, right? Oregon State continues to mash at the plate. All right. Kentucky bats cold. Dallas Baptist, they just keep winning games. Somehow they just keep winning games. Strong bounce back weekend for Georgia. All right. Clemson, absolute nightmare to face. Excellent pitching, excellent hitting. Do not commit errors, right? Virginia putting up double digit runs game after game after game after game, right? Like it doesn't have to be editorially beautiful. You know what I'm saying? Like just jotting things down that you see, especially when they happen week after week, whether it's good or bad, these things help. They absolutely help in the sport because the number one thing that is most difficult with this sport is that there are a lot of moving parts and there are a lot of moving teams. All right. It's impossible to keep up with everything. We might not even bet most of these teams, right? But it's just understanding where these teams are because once you get past this, okay, you start like when you're looking at the weekend as a whole, you're going to start using some of these teams that you find. All right. It's not going to happen every single week, but they might have a really nice, right? So, under the radar series, we talk about ranked teams, but we also talk about teams that might not be getting a lot of love or a lot of attention because it's just not a large media type sport. Wright State at the bottom. I remember this from last year. Wright State, all right, was scoring 19 runs a game and they were giving up 17, right? Like, and they would have totals that were like 14 and a half. It would just hit after hit after hit after hit after hit. So it's under the radar series that you might not always get these teams to bet, but you're looking at it saying, okay, Wright State, like their games hit the over and no one is paying attention at all, right? Indiana State was the exact same way. It literally got them ranked because they would just score so many runs. Belmont, a team that's in Nashville, right? They were going to play Indiana State up there. Belmont scored a lot of runs. That's why it's like, okay, people might not be paying attention to them, but you might have weekends where you have 4 of them. You might have a weekend where you have 1 of them. You know what I mean? But it's just kind of where some of these smaller teams line up. And you might not be watching them, but you start to see them popping up on these notes, right? They just keep coming up. You're like, I need to bet Indiana damn State games. You know what I mean? Like, you're just going to start to notice that stuff. And it's going to happen second nature again. Doesn't mean that you have to follow and watch every one of these teams. But when you just take minimal notes, all right, but you're consistent with it, you will start to find trends. 100%. College baseball is not a difficult sport. It's a chaotic sport, but it's very consistent. All right. I promise. I know that sounds crazy because it is chaotic, but it's consistent, man. It absolutely is. Teams that can hit, they swing, they cut, right? Teams that can pitch, don't give up a lot of runs. They generally don't give up a lot of runs, right? Like, so when you start to notice these trends, just jot them down and find where that trend aligns, right, with what you're looking at with another team. Indiana State scored 1,000,000 runs a game. Belmont was doing it too, right? Same thing, Wright State at Oakland. You'll start to notice these things. And again, doesn't mean you have to bet them, but you're jotting it down. Okay. And that's the most important is that you're getting ahead of it and you're saying, ooh, nobody knows about this. But when they drop, if that total for Wright State and Oakland is anything under 15 runs, we're playing the over immediately, right? The books might not pay attention. I'm telling you, it sounds crazy. They might not be paying attention to it because they don't have a lot of people working college baseball either. Okay. So that is under the radar. Now, delete another thing. I know it feels like I do a lot, and I'm not saying that like blowing smoke up my rear, but like I track these, man. Like you find teams, okay, teams that we identified that could be good matchups, like for the weekend. All right, are we seeing sweeps? Do we see a team that won Friday, that won Saturday? Okay, is this a team that generally accomplishes sweeps, or if they win Friday and Saturday, do they generally lose on Sunday? This isn't the most important slide, but you can sometimes find some value. You'll start to get it. Like if you do this little exercise 12 weeks in a row, you'll start to see the same teams that pop up, right? Generally the same teams that win on Fridays, they win on Fridays. Might lose Saturdays, but they win on Fridays and win on Sundays. Like you'll start to notice and find it. Do they do it at home? Do they do it on the road, right? You'll just start to pick up little things. So again, it doesn't mean that you're betting every one of these teams, but you're just picking up little pieces. All right. You're just jotting it down. Doesn't have to be pretty. You're just jotting it down. Like, I might come back to that. You know what I mean? So then you start to look at double headers. Okay. Well, we know what and I don't have a percentage for you, but double headers, like game 1 and game 2, almost always mirror each other. Almost always. Use the first one, Alabama at Georgia. Okay. Say Alabama wins 10-1 in game 1. They probably are going to win game 2 pretty big. Like most people think that it averages out. It doesn't. Now, I'm not saying it'll be exactly 10-1. It might be 6-0, right? But for the most part, 65% of the time, 70% of the time, game 2 is going to mirror game 1. So start to notice when you have double headers because you're going to have time to bet the second game. Okay. And that is why that is important. You might not bet game 1. Like we could be sitting here. These are Saturdays. Let's just say that today is Saturday, whenever you're watching this. And we're saying, okay, let's not bet game 1 of Alabama and Georgia. Let's just let it play out. But we've got it circled on game 2. If one of these teams hammers the other, I'm going with that in game 2. Now, it doesn't mean that it's always going to play out. Doesn't mean that at all. Doesn't mean it's going to 100% of the time. For the most part, it does, right? I'm telling you it does. So noticing quirk type games when you have them, because some teams will play, maybe there's projected weather on Sunday, all right, because you're playing in, spring and summer, okay? Southeast, you've got bad storms projected on Sunday. Teams will agree to play on Friday, and they'll play 2 on Saturday so that they don't even have to mess with a postponement or anything like that. You'll see that a lot. It happens all the time. So when you see these double headers, again, doesn't mean jumping all over it, but circle it. Then you start to notice that Vanderbilt is crushing these double headers. You'll start to notice teams that keep popping up and keep popping up and keep popping up. Like that little info plays out and it helps. All right. Absolutely helps. Now, the list. I also like to keep a list, all right, of teams. And these are the 3 categories. Trust issues. All right. You don't know what you're going to get. Any game, even if all the data and the metrics point your favor. Okay. At this moment, we had TCU and Duke. Red flags. Remember Florida and Wake Forest? Dude, 2 teams that should have been top 10 all year long would just die, right? Like they would just kill bets, kill parlays, and then blocked. Stanford and Texas couldn't trust them one bit. Now, you don't have to do it this way, but again, just taking little notes, all right, of teams that you're like, I'm not betting this team anymore. And I'm sure that we all do that in any sport, right? College football, the NFL, like you're like, I do not care if every metric aligns. I'm not betting TCU, right? Like pay attention to those, man. It's real. It's absolutely real. Absolutely. So that's something that I like to keep up with. Now, here's the most important one. So we got all of that info to get to right here, okay? Because we talked about keeping it simple and focused. You don't have to know everyone. Start your process small. If you have never bet college baseball before, but you like, taking notes and getting ahead of it, okay? Start small. Expand on your own pace, and I'll show you how to do it. I swear to you, this is the most important tool you'll ever have. So this is what we call the rotation. We've done this for a couple years. So we've done this for a while, actually. But, all right, what the rotation is are these teams that are on the left, and I'll pull this full screen. Okay. I don't have to know all 350 teams in betting college baseball. I have to know these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. These 11 teams, okay? I track these teams. Either betting for them, could be betting against them if they have a bad weekend, but I am finding absolute consistency with these teams, and I'm understanding exactly who they are. I don't have to know anyone else. Do not care. Do not care. I can focus directly on these teams because you have enough to bet on. You're going to have 4 games a week for each one of these teams, right? And it doesn't have to be 11 teams. Start with 2. Start with 1, right? Like it absolutely helps. Literally, start with 3. Whatever you feel comfortable with, right? Like I built it to 11 because I've just done this for a long time, right? But this is where your success will come. You don't have to know everyone. And that's what books are counting on. Okay. Because think about this when you have Friday games, Saturday games, Sunday games, watch the totals that the books put out. Friday night, all right, totals might be 11.5, 12.5. Saturday, 13.5, 14.5. Sunday, 15.5. You're going to see those. Why? You've got worse pitching, bullpen usage, all right, and teams have been hitting and the books have an understanding. So you have lines and totals that are moving all over the place. It's a lot going on, and the books are counting that you're trying to understand 350. Imagine not trying to bet every team in March Madness in the NCAA basketball tournament. It's impossible. Impossible. You can't track all these teams. You can't. But you can track a couple. All right. And I track these teams all year long. Now, in your rotation, if a team starts to get inconsistent, yank them out of there, right? Like it doesn't have to be the same every time. I would still track them, but I'll show you how I did it, right? But again, so your rotation, okay? You might have 3 teams, might have 5, might have 11. All right? Track their wins, losses through the year. All right? Runs scored per game. That's how many they score. Category 2. Runs per game allowed. All right? What their average is that they're allowing to the other team throughout the year. All right? And how they did the previous week. Okay? Are they staying consistent? Vanderbilt 4-0. This was back from like week 5, right? I know that it's jumping all over, but just examples, right? So Vanderbilt, week 5, they went 4-0. Week 4, they went 4-0. Okay. All right. And who do they have in week 6, right? Like you look and you're like, okay, great matchup. Let's keep going, right? It's consistent. You're going to find your teams that are absolutely consistent. That's what you want to find. Okay. You don't have to know all these teams. It's impossible. Don't try to. I don't. I know a lot of them, but no, man. Like you'll see, I generally bet on the same teams, and this is why. It's the most important thing you can do. So track these teams. Just get a list of teams that you find consistently. All right, you can bet on. You have when you do your notes and you bet before their game. Let's just use Vanderbilt, and again, it's not gonna be 100%, but like game after game after game, like you're pretty spot on. Like you're like, okay, I understand this team. Like it's playing out generally how I think. That's what you want. That you don't have to bet anything else. You're gonna have 4 games a week with just Vanderbilt. Okay, so if you have 3 or 4 of these teams, 16. Like you don't need to bet a million games. You know what I'm saying? So understanding a couple teams is so valuable, much more valuable than trying to understand all of them because you can't. This tool will help you. Absolutely. I assure you, I have lived off of doing this, and I've never had a losing season in college baseball, ever. And it's because of this right here. All right. So start it small, expand at your own pace. This has nothing to do with anyone else. You might stay with 2 teams for an entire year. Absolutely fine. Okay. Because you'll start to notice where you're good and where you need, not you, but like where the improvements can come. Say you have the same 2 teams. All right. Say you have Vanderbilt and Duke. All right. You're crushing Fridays with both of these teams. They just win Friday games. Saturdays, they're losing. Okay. Sundays, they come back and win. Well, if that happens week after week after week, you start to understand it. Then you look at a team who they might be playing on a Saturday who's awful on Fridays and Sundays, but they're great on Saturdays. We saw the Michigan stat, right? Like, you see how all of this comes together. And again, it's a lot. I certainly get it. Not everybody's going to be able to do this by hand, but you can tune in to drive. And I'm not plugging it like for that. I'm just saying you can tune in and do it and take what you will, your teams from it. Okay. But just having an understanding and consistency, I assure you, you will find success. I promise you that you will, because you're either going to bet for it or against them. All right. Runs with both teams or no runs with both teams. But you will find consistency. I assure you, by tracking it. Excellent tool. So what did I do next? I started the process again. Okay. Now I call this the scouting department. It's the same thing. The exact same thing. Okay. Teams that I start to notice. All right. And when I see consistency, okay, let's just say with Campbell, track it. Might not be betting these teams. I'm usually not. I'm betting these teams, my rotation. But these teams are close to making that rotation. Okay. Campbell, let's just say they keep winning Fridays, keep winning Fridays, keep winning Fridays. Well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to bet them on Fridays, right? Like, you start to notice these things. So again, you don't have to go to this full extent, but these two tools right here, I swear to you, and you could use this in any sport. It will absolutely 100% help when you just focus. All right. You don't try to worry about everything that's going on in the sport. It's impossible. We as a team couldn't do it, but you can focus on certain teams. Give it a shot. All right. It'll take a little time, like, to adjust, but once you get it, you will have it for life. Once you get it and start to understand it, you will have this for life. And it applies to the NFL. It applies to college basketball. It applies to Major League, like all of it. You will find your ability to translate it, because it'll be a little different, but it works. Because why? You're not focused on a million things. You're focused consistency and consistently on the same items. And that's what betting is right there. You don't have to know everybody. You just have to know somebody. Okay? Remember that for sure. So tips to remember: not overthink it. Don't overthink it. We just went through that process right there. I swear to you. All right? Don't overthink this thing. College baseball is chaotic, but it's consistent. Hitting is contagious. When teams are hitting, they start hitting on Friday, they keep hitting on Saturday, and they keep hitting on Sunday. All right? Hitting is absolutely contagious. Win the weekend. You're going to have bad days. It's going to happen. I promise you. I promise you. Don't get upset. Stick to your process. Okay? It's not adjusting yourself, it's adjusting the tools. Okay? Is a team listed, right, in our rotation that is now becoming inconsistent? Well, get them the hell out of there. All right? Still track it, because they'll generally come back to what they were. But that's understanding the why. Okay? If you're going to understand the why, you will mitigate so much loss, and that really is the key. Okay? Bounce backs and dues. Okay? We talked about it. Teams that are due for a bounce back, all right, and have a matchup where they can do it. They're, good team. They generally do. Okay? Teams that are due, all right, like you'll see it in your list when you're like, you know what? Every time Clemson loses a weekend, they bounce back and beat the hell out of somebody the next weekend. You'll see teams that are like that. Then you'll start to notice, you're like, oh, okay. Oh, it's when they go on the road. Oh, they're not a good road team. Oh, but the series, they lost 2 out of 3. They lost all 3 on the road. Next weekend they're at home. Right? Like, you'll start to pick those things up, and it'll come to you. Like, once you start jotting it down week after week, it'll come. You'll see it. You'll just absolutely see it, and being ahead of it is absolutely where you will separate yourself from everyone else. I assure you, assure you. I don't know if there's anybody in the world that has bet more college baseball games than I have. I'm serious. All right. That these notes are absolutely like a playbook that I have built from losses, right? Like it works. Okay. Ping pong theory again, what we just talked about. Double headers. Circle those. You're gonna have them. Okay. Doesn't work every time, but you'll start to notice your teams that are rock solid, consistent in double headers. All right, game 1 to game 2s, and you'll be able to find those, knock them out. That's it. I know that I just went an hour on here, and I apologize for taking up all your time, but I promise you, all right, these notes will absolutely help, and it will make you such a better in college baseball. And in a chaotic sport where it can rip your heart out, this is where you will have and find so much more fun and a couple extra tokens in your pocket. All right, my name is Allan Bell for Driving the Line. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope this helps. If you have any questions, let me know. Find me on Twitter or at Driving the Line on YouTube. Have a great day. All right, we'll see you in the dugout. Thanks.